Welcome to Cultivating Victory Live. I'm Mary Lucero here today with Glenn Schultz and our special guest here, Robert Leal. Robert is a permaculture instructor in El Paso, Texas, and basically helped initiate the El Paso Permaculture Group and has been building food forests and community gardens throughout the border area for a number of years now. And I wonder if you'd tell us a little bit about how you got started and maybe why El Paso.
I got interested in food systems and ecological design, permaculture, while I was working for the Environmental League of Conservation in Los Angeles, California. I had just finished college and really depressed our impact, our human impact on the planet. And I was just wanting to learn more about how to solve these, how to reverse our impact, to be a beneficial impact. And in my search, permaculture came up. The first time it came up, it really didn't sit with me. It just kind of went over my head. Second time I came across it, it was through a coworker. And she had been practicing and meeting with groups, like permaculture groups there in Los Angeles, and she invited me to a meeting and invited me to take a little tour of her garden. And I was inspired. And she was, about 65, 70 years old at the time. She wasn't a young chicken, a young spring chicken. She was up there in age, and she was the food that she was coming from her garden and lived at home.
I'm getting some.
Yeah, so I was inspired by one of our coworkers there, and it just sent me onto the path. I went in, started volunteering on a farm in Watsonville, California. There's a lot of blackberries, strawberries that come from that area. It's like a nice agricultural breadbasket, and the redwoods. And I just started learning. I just got hungry for the knowledge, the permaculture knowledge. And I moved back to El Paso without really any intent on staying about 9 years ago. I just was going to visit my mother and my brother and my sister. My immediate family lives in El Paso. And when I got to El Paso, I noticed that our family was fragmented. Like everyone was doing their own thing, and there was no cohesiveness. And my brother was going through a depression. I just felt like there was a responsibility to stay and share what I had been learning. And I asked my mother if it was okay if I built her a garden in her backyard. And she said, absolutely not. And I did it anyways. I went back there and tore up all her grass and put in a vegetable garden and planted a bunch of trees. And when I first started, it was just me back there for the first week. And then my brother started joining in. And then my mother started joining in. My sister started joining in. So it really brought our family back together. And it healed a lot of those fractures that happen sometimes in families. And that was inspiring to me. And I decided to stay in El Paso and continue to build that here in El Paso, because I wasn't seeing any sort of urban or any sort of agricultural movement for the people and for community. So I felt there was a great need, and I stayed.
So I've got to get the picture here. What was your mother's reaction when she came home and found the backyard torn up?
She was not happy, but I think I knew deep down inside she was going to love it. I knew it. But it was just, that initial attachment that she had with it that was just, bothersome. But she got over it really quick, and she joined in and fell in love with the garden and was out there, tending to it and harvesting from it. And yeah, it's been great.
Since your background was growing berries in, I think, Northern California is what you said. So
Yeah, I was volunteering on a blackberry farm. Yeah, blackberry,
were you
strawberry.
able to be successful growing berries in El Paso?
I didn't even try. I didn't even attempt it. Yeah, because I didn't feel it was an appropriate crop for what we were trying to do. Wasn't needed, but I've seen it be successful actually here in El Paso and Las Cruces. But I haven't really given it a full shot.
So you did just mostly vegetables then?
Vegetables, perennials, some perennial shrubs, a lot of fruit trees, jujubes, apricots, figs, pomegranates, and interplanting with leguminous plants like leguminous trees like mesquite and locust trees.
Wow.
So talk to us about expanding from your mother's backyard to community groups, and you've done some school groups and downtown community gardens as well, right?
Right, correct. So I was at a cafe in El Paso about 8 or 9 years ago, and I overheard a gentleman talking about a community garden, someone wanting to start a community garden. And I walked over and I introduced myself. His name is Carlos Mendo. He's really active in our community in El Paso. And I introduced myself to him, and I told him that I actually gave him a book, a permaculture book called The Permaculture Way. And I showed him, look into permaculture, look into these design systems. I think he'd be interested. And so we exchanged information, and we ended up meeting again, not shortly after that meeting, and we decided to start a permaculture group. And yeah, we started working with nonprofit organizations, umbrella to receive funding, and to build out gardens at food banks. And I was asked to manage a $10,000 USDA grant for a school here in downtown El Paso called La Fe Preparatory School. And La Fe is a wonderful school. It's in Segundo Barrio, it's really close to the border. It's a walking distance to Mexico, to Juarez. And La Fe fell in love with the concept, and they hired me to teach their 4th, 5th, and 6th graders about permaculture. And we built out a geodesic dome, a greenhouse dome, with the students, staff, and the teachers, and even the parents came out and volunteered for that build. And we also de-paved a 2,000 square foot parking lot and turned it into a garden, a food forest. And that project was so special to me, and because having the kids in the garden all year, learning about the microbes and the nematodes and all the elements that play out onto the garden, and having them design their home in a way that would work good for them.
Now, does this school feed into Bowie High School by any chance?
It does feed into Bowie High School.
I know Bowie has put a lot of infrastructure in school gardens as well, and integrating gardening into the curriculum. Was that underway when you started in the elementary school, or did your elementary school work by any chance feed into the work at the high school level?
Bowie started that garden initiative, and then it wasn't shortly the the Lafayette effort. So it was really inspiring. Senator Shapley was the lead, the catalyst for that garden at Bowie, and I guess Senator Shapley heard about what we were doing at Lafayette too, and he invited me to meet with him and consult on that project also. And it was a great effort, a huge community effort. The Master Gardeners were part of it. Yeah, even Congressman Beto O'Rourke was a big part of it too. So, yeah.
Now, I'm curious about sustainability. After you go in and build a garden, everybody's excited, there's a lot of community input, but year after year upkeep and maintenance, what I see happening in community gardens is that they tend to drift away as the original mind behind it moves on to other things. What are you observing in terms of keeping these alive?
The community garden at Lafayette is fully embraced. After I moved out to Anthony, New Mexico, La Union, New Mexico, about almost 3 years ago, and I had to step away from that position there at Lafayette Preparatory School. And I would go back as often as I could to kind of, keep it moving forward. And the first year stepping away, it was a challenge because a lot of the administrators and the teachers there weren't really garden savvy, or they didn't have the green thumb, as they say. But these last couple years, it's really formed. A lot of La Semilla contributed to it also. A couple years ago, they put in a couple of raised beds to keep it going, and there was a mural installation recently, and it looks beautiful. The whole garden looks really great.
Nice.
It's really, really exciting to see that it's still moving forward.
Now, if you look at the big picture, I was surprised looking up El Paso statistics because they're very bipolar. Even the estimates of how many people are food insecure or how many people are living in poverty tend to vary widely depending on who's reporting. I saw numbers for food insecure families ranging from like 9% to 20%, with as many as 50% of the children living in poverty, depending on what source you read. And similar things in terms of the city overall. Lennar is a building company who has estimated that they've ranked El Paso among the 10 hottest real estate markets in 2018. So we've got all these tensions. We've got the border tension. We've got the poverty versus growth tension, and all these different dynamics happening around El Paso. What, in terms of really addressing food security issues within the city, how big a dent can permaculture make?
Well, the beautiful thing about permaculture, it's not only about cultivating food, it's very much also about cultivating community and people. And I think that's really where the resiliency is, when we realize how important our neighbors are to our health. And it's actually more important than food and water. That might sound kind of weird, but human connection, it contributes to our health way more than we could ever think. And if you think about how our cities are designed, they're not really designed for community. A lot of people don't know their neighbors. They never associate with their neighbors. They just maybe a wave and that's it. And that's by design. The railways were from everything west of the Ohio River was designed for the railways, for that western expansion to manifest destiny, right? And also designed to extract resources from very rich parts of the country. And El Paso, our university mascot, the UTEP, is the miners, right? The UTEP miners. So the railway ran through El Paso, and all of the roads were designed to feed the railway, load trucks up with copper and precious wood, and send it back east to the people, to the,
Somewhere.
yeah. And they got this extreme empire, this extremely wealthy empire from this extractive design. And the people that were indigenous at those lands, they were getting money, they were getting stipend for their work, but all their resources were being taken away, all of our resources, so by design. So that rigid intersection that we see, the four-way stop, it's only designed for vehicles. It's not designed for people to actually interact and intersect to where we can, solve issues and solve problems. If you look at a natural forming village, you'll notice that the intersections have more than 5, 6, 7, 8 intersections. So people are in constant interface. So issues can be addressed, and people can mourn and celebrate together in these plazas or these areas. So the idea is it has great potential to connect us back to our food and where it comes from. But I think the big challenge is redesigning our places, our roads, making our intersections for people, not just for vehicles and extraction.
Putting people back into the landscape.
Yeah.
So what kinds of barriers do you see? So this infrastructure, the urban design is one barrier. Have you run into other barriers as you try to build these community gardens and food forests?
Not really. The beautiful thing about permaculture, it's accessible. There's so much information about it online now. There's people doing it all over the world. And it's really easy to apply. Once you've learned, the foundations, the ethics, once I guess the greatest barrier is being consistent with the work, and that's a big one, is staying consistent, because our busy lives, we're being pulled in all these different directions, and sometimes the garden can be neglected, or our connection to the land could be forgotten really easily in our world today, all the distractions.
What do you see at your mother's house now that you're away and busy with other things?
Yeah,
What percentage of their food is coming from their garden?
honestly not very much right now. Yeah, I was kind of the hub for that garden. And after I left, my brother kept it up for a couple of years, and then he finished up college and moved out and got his career going, and so it's, he still spends a lot of time there, and my mother, she has a business, she runs a business full time. She started a business not too long ago, so she's busy with that. But we have food where we're growing to share. to share with my family. And
Hi, Robert. This is Suzanne. Mary.
Hi, Suzanne.
I'm not aware of all the details of what you do in El Paso. I'm assuming that you are proliferating knowledge out. Do you have activities that reach out to the community to sort of draw them in to try to educate them, or is it more word of mouth?
Yeah, we have a online presence with Facebook. We have a Facebook group, and there's about 1,500 people. It's called El Paso Permaculture.
Okay.
It's a group page. You can join that to learn what we're doing. And then, and a lot of it is also word of mouth and working, just the work we do in the community.
And building a permaculture garden in the desert, I would think, has certain challenges. Are there any bits of enlightenment you might be able to share about that or help to catapult someone along in that regard?
Yeah, definitely listen to the elements, obviously. Notice where the shade is, where the sun shines heavily, where the afternoon shade hits, because those are certain parts of the land that need to be protected and shaded somehow. And build soil. And the building soil, I think, is number one. My general objective is to build soil. That's like number one for me. And if we're building structured, healthy, living soils, the earth is going to be cooler. Build soil compost, have your vermicompost bin close to your kitchen. Have your herb garden, your leafy greens close to your kitchen. And turn your kitchen into a productive zone. You can sprout really easily here. Sprouting foods, incredibly nutrient dense option for food. Fermenting foods, that's super important also. There's so much we can do. It's started. The big failure is not getting started, I feel. Not doing it or being afraid not to do it.
I can relate to that for sure. Yeah.
Hi, Robert. This is Daryl.
Hi, Daryl.
Does your permaculture group have connection with the El Paso Master Gardeners? Are you doing cooperative projects with them?
We have worked together on projects, but it's not like an official partnership per se. But we definitely worked together before.
So Robert, if there are groups in the community that want to get involved or help you with some of your efforts in El Paso and permaculture, how can people reach you, and what kinds of things are you looking for?
You can find us on Facebook at El Paso Permaculture Group, and you could also email us at elpasopermaculture@gmail.com. And we just recently wrapped up a 3-day ecological convergence in La Union, New Mexico, and it's called La Union Eco Spirit Festival, and you can find that on Instagram, and you can see what we're doing there.
Okay, well, Robert, thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Yes, you're welcome. Thanks for having me. Yes.